Greetings users, Analogue 3.0 here in the first video of a series I hope to continue in the future. Before we get started, I would like to talk a bit about this channel and its inception. For some time now, I've found myself getting pulled deeper into the debates and arguments occurring between the feminist and SJW camps and their opposites. I recently started considering whether or not I should add my voice to the discussion, as I strongly disagree with many of the talking points being raised by the feminists and social justice warriors out there. Not that I want to add more noise to an already very noisy discussion, but I think the more variety of ways you express things, the better the chance of having the other side start to understand. That's if you speak to them the correct way. That being said, I've been working for a week or so now, thinking of different topics to discuss, how to go about my channel, and if I could pull it off within my schedule. I've decided that I might not be able to make a lot of videos, but I can certainly try to make them count. Whether or not I'm successful is entirely up to all of you. So I've been working intermittently to come up with the topics I want to discuss in the order I want to discuss them in, when I stumbled across Sargon of Akkad's video about University of Toronto's Professor Jordan Peterson. The Coles notes of the situation is that Jordan Peterson is adamantly opposing Bill C-16 in Canada. It's a bill that, at its core, is centered on transgendered rights, but has some flaws that he feels unfairly burden non-transgendered individuals, and actually disrespects core tenets of things like free speech. Full disclaimer, I am in agreement with him, and I'll attempt to impart upon you just why I do agree with him. It's important to point out that Professor Peterson is not a transphobe. He has not displayed hatred or bias towards transgendered individuals, but he refuses to be forced to think and speak with the myriad of pronouns that transgendered people have decided to label themselves with. His argument is that it's not only wrong to force people to use these new pronouns when talking with individuals, but also it's unrealistic to expect everyone to learn the dozens upon dozens of pronouns that exist. Now, this would not be so blown out of proportion were it not for the fact that Bill C-16 is attempting to classify mislabeling somebody by the wrong pronouns as a form of hate speech. Such an act would not qualify someone for jail time in and of itself, but can garner significant fines. Should you choose not to pay those fines, then jail time becomes inevitable, as is the law in Canada. From the flip side, I've heard arguments from transgendered groups saying that mislabeling them is a human rights violation, that such a violation strips their humanity away. I've even heard the arguments made that it's because of these pronouns that transgendered people are ostracized, disrespected, hated, physically or emotionally abused, denied housing and work, so on and so forth. Here's why my logic has led me to believe they're not only wrong, but they've lost the plot to their own success. In every language, there are divisions of region, social status, ideology, etc., that cause variations in the linguistics of individuals. This often is referred to as dialect, vernacular, or for the posh, patois. What's important about the definitions of these words is that they reference language that develops within regions or groups, collectives of individuals that share similar characteristics or traits and often share a sense of unity with each other. The words and phrases that formed within dialects were often very confined to their respective regions until the late 20th century, given that the world was still a very small place back then. But with the introduction of the internet and its veritable explosion in the 21st century, dialects started spreading far quicker and forming among regionally disparate individuals. This is most prominently seen among the various forms of digital chat with terms such as LOL or IMHO. The reason I bring this up is because it's important to put all of these newly created pronouns into context. The context is that they are part of a dialect. They are patois for the transgendered. They are a dialect because they are unique linguistic terminology developed within a group that spans the globe, but share similar characteristics and have a sense of unity. They are a dialect because they do not constitute an entire language unto themselves, but the greater number of these pronouns do reside within the English language. Now, since we've established with logic that these terms do indeed fall within a dialect, we need to acknowledge that a dialect, as part of language, cannot be made an enforceable law. To do so would set a precedent we could not easily come back from. Freedom of speech would be irreparably damaged for decades to come, and every time someone came up with a new set of pronouns, everyone would be forced to learn them. Furthermore, this would invite legislation that would make even the smallest slight a chargeable offense. So the next time someone got angry and called another person a jerk, ass, or bastard, the courts would end up hearing about it. This leads into my next point, which is why the transgendered social justice warriors have lost the plot to their own success. It never bodes well when a group trying to fight for rights gets focused on a micro-battle, that is, losing the war and the battle to accomplish one tiny little task. Rather than focus on awareness for LGBTQ plus rights, which would be the big war, they find a tiny little topic that wouldn't accomplish anything for their cause, and would actually decrease patience and increase intolerance for them. There are so many better fights to be had for transgendered people, such as improved awareness for the mental and emotional states they experience, or the unique ways they experience them compared to heterosexual and homosexual individuals. Or perhaps a fight could be made for covering some degree of gender reassignment surgery under provincial or federal medical coverage. But instead, they fight with people over the insane number of words that are being developed to refer to them. Part of me is admittedly infuriated at how childish this fight is. As I bounced between the various videos online, I came across two videos from Lauren Southern in which she attempted to interview various people at a rally where people from both sides had gathered. I found it ironic that she could openly state she was non-cis, quote-unquote, and yet she was verbally and physically accosted by the trans and trans-ally groups who showed up. No one asked her what her opinion was or who she supported. They simply treated her with contempt and disgust. Perhaps all they saw was an attractive, white, blonde woman and immediately assumed she was heterosexual and therefore against them. In any event, what they displayed was not the behavior of a group that crowns themselves inclusive and respectful of all. Instead, they reminded us that they're no better than anyone else, and maybe even sometimes worse. In closing, I am all for equality, fairness, and reasonable discourse, but myself and others like me will always push back when unreasonable requests are made. You're welcome to make choices that affect your existence and to make you more comfortable, but you need to know that the line must be drawn somewhere. If you want respect, you can't demand it, but draw your line short of returning that respect. Once you realize that you're trying to force people to conform to your patterns, behaviors, and ways of thought, hopefully you'll acknowledge that you're doing to others what you've asked not to be done unto you. Stones and glass houses never mix. Thanks for watching, users. This is Analogue 3.0, logging off.